When it comes to guardianship or even adoption, there are a lot of questions that can go unanswered.
Which is why we talked with our friend Coralie Chun Matayoshi to ask her, what's the law?
Coralie, let's talk about some of these important issues when it comes to children, of course, guardianship, adoption, divorce, custody. What are you covering and what's the law?
So sometimes children need care and guidance when the parents become unavailable or die, and the court appoints a guardian. It could be mental or physical incapacity, prison, deployment, and in that case, the court assigns a guardian to take physical custody of the child, as well as make legal decisions like medical treatment and education. It could be for a set terms, like an emergency up to 30 days if they're going to get deployed by the military, or certain issues like education. And anybody can serve as a guardian as long as they have the best interest of the child in mind. It's usually grandparents, aunties, or uncles. A parent can express it in their will, as to who should be the guardian in case they die, but it's not binding. And a minor, actually, 14 years and older, can express a preference, and the court will usually honor that preference unless it's not in the best interest of the child. There are differences between guardianships and adoptions. So adoption is really when the person steps into the shoes and becomes a natural parent, and it's put on the birth certificate, and they have full rights and responsibilities for the child, and it's forever. So if the child causes a car accident, they could be liable for whatever damages are caused. Or if they get later divorced, even if it's not your biological child, if you adopted that child, you might be responsible for child support. And sometimes, you always hear about the child wanting to find out who's my real birth parent. And so there's different types of ways you can do that. There's an open adoption where there's full communication between the birth and the adoptive parents, and it gives them a chance to explain, why did I give you for adoption, or explore more of the medical history. Then there's closed adoptions where there's no exchange of identification and no direct or indirect contact. And sometimes people just want to keep it private. And then there's a semi-open where the communication exchange and updates are done through a third-party go-between. But whether it's guardianships or adoptions, it's a happy time. I remember when I was practicing law, I loved to do pro bono cases because you could help a couple who couldn't have kids of their own, or blended families come together, or even find a foster kid forever home. And so the most important things in these instances is to make sure that the child is cared and loved for.
Very important. And also in terms of children, we also want to talk about child custody with so many divorces happening. What are some basic information that you think our viewers should have about child custody?
There's a difference between legal and physical child custody. The legal is which parent gets to make the major decisions, like what school they go to or medical decisions. There's sole legal custody where only one parent gets to make those decisions and the other parent doesn't. So it could be religion, or if the child gets into an accident and there's a decision as to whether to pull the plug. If you're the sole legal custody, you don't have to ask your spouse about that. Joint legal custody is when they make joint decisions. Then there's the physical custody as to who lives with who, right? So if it's a sole physical custody, then they live primarily with one spouse, with the other spouse getting visitation rights. If it's joint, it doesn't have to be 50-50, but a lot of times it's overnight stays. You get them 3 nights, I get them 4. And then there's split custody, physical custody, which is less common. It's when the siblings are kind of put apart between different parents, and there could be different situations why you would do that. But the guiding principle is best interest of the child. And there used to be a thing called the tender years presumption, where the mother always got custody of the child, but now that's not the case. It's whatever the history was, if you had meaningful contact, whether there's a history of abuse or whatever. And people that are getting a divorce need to go to a Kids First mandatory program by the court. And it's just to make people understand the psychology of it and to have kids be put first. That's what it is.
Coralie, thank you so much, as always, for giving us your advice on important legal matters. And we'll see you next time for What's the Law?
Thank you, Tanya.